Welcome to this week's Master Coaches Weekly Buzz hosted by John Forman. We continue to update our viewers on the most current issues in women's and men's collegiate volleyball, junior club volleyball, and the trends with the new women's professional volleyball leagues, and conversations with leaders in our sport. Our most recent guest was Wade Gerard, CEO of First Point Volleyball Foundation, who gave us an update on the new men's collegiate volleyball programs in 2021. Now, let's go to former Olympic coach Mick Haley, who will introduce our special guest today. Mick?
Thank you, Ruth. It's my pleasure to introduce Lindsey Atkinson, Director of Sports at the National Federation of State High School Associations. Welcome, Lindsey.
Thank you very much.
I have a couple of questions for you. It's a kind of a two-part question, but can you tell us actually what the mission is of your federation, and does every state have an association that's a member of the National Federation?
This is like a test. I didn't know we were starting out. Mission statement. Let me see if I have it memorized.
Oh.
No, we are a service-based organization, so we serve our member state associations. So to the second part of your question, we have 51 state associations. So we do give DC stateship in the National Federation. So we have all 50 states plus the District of Columbia are members. We also have affiliate members, so like the provinces in Canada are affiliate members. So we have access to high school students across the country and more and beyond. But our mission is to provide resources, both educational resources. We're the rules writing body, obviously, for high school sports. And it's really to engage and empower young people, serve as the resource for both coaches, officials, and young people to better themselves and grow with interscholastic sports being the core, obviously.
Well, thank you. That's pretty specific. Any other outside groups besides Canada? Do you have anybody relations with Puerto Rico, tributaries like that, or any of the other areas?
We do. Puerto Rico is an affiliate member. I don't know them all. I knew we have about half of our states are also activities associations. So they have like music, debate, and so we have a lot of affiliate members that are activities organizations within the state. We also, Iowa still is the only state that has a separate boys and girls high school association. So their boys association, which is the member association, and then the girls association is technically the affiliate association. Obviously, when it comes to volleyball, we communicate directly with the Iowa Girls Association and don't really treat them in the aspect of being an affiliate as opposed to a full-blown member of the association, because that's the association that's running the high school girls state tournament. So we very much treat our affiliates with as much inclusiveness as we possibly can so that they're also a part of the conversation, and they're engaged in our summer meeting, like I mentioned, which is happening right now. So all 51 state associations are executive directors, their support staffs, they're all engaged in conversations currently and bettering themselves in a professional development opportunity. Sorry.
That's all right. That's great. That's interesting. I was not aware of Iowa being in that situation. Brian Gimmillaro, the former national championship coach at Long Beach State and a legend out there, has got a good question for you. Brian, can you jump in here?
Sure. I have a few questions. First, welcome, Lindsey.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
What do you know about this upcoming season for girls volleyball? What is your prediction? Is it state by state? Is your organization making any directives toward the high school season? And third, is there any protocols set up by your organization for the upcoming season?
Great questions. And I was able to view the Sharon Clark on here a couple of weeks ago, and very much similar answers that Sharon provided in terms of it is going to be state by state. States are really throwing everything out on the table. What can we do to make sure sports are an option? we feel good. Obviously, we need school to come back first. That's the difference between, we rely on schools to be in session. So a lot of it is our state associations, making sure they're up to date with the governor's office and what's happening in their state. They have some tough questions to really consider as far as coming back goes and what that looks like. In terms of what sports come back first, we did issue the federation, we do have a sports medicine committee. They got together and released some guidelines for our state associations that addressed general things that they should consider while they're making that decision on whether or not or when they come back, not really whether or not we come back, but when that timing is right to come back, and what needs to be in place in terms of policies that they need to have in place and checking temperatures and things before competition can begin. So that's definitely going to be a state-by-state decision. We also did, and I pride my volleyball rules committee on this, because we were the kind of the leaders in this from the office standpoint. We have now released all of our fall sport guidelines, but we did look at our rules. The rules committee got together and we looked at our specific playing rules for the sport of volleyball in the high school space, and looked at where are areas that we could put in some rules modifications for this year that could potentially help volleyball be able to be played in whatever capacity. When we did look at the rules, we thought, we don't want to change rules that would change the game of volleyball. If we're not ready to play volleyball as it's meant to be played, then we're not ready to play volleyball. But if we can limit contact in the pregame conference, if we can limit contact from switching benches and switching playing fields, if we can limit handshakes before and after, if we can allow for officials to use electronic whistles and wear masks and gloves and things like that, we can do those things. So we put together some guidelines for state associations that they can consider when they're thinking about, are we ready to play volleyball? And hopefully we've gotten some good feedback on those were good, helpful things. And so we continue to support our states in that aspect and supporting when they're ready. Like I said, our summer meeting is going on now. So I was in a lot of their discussion forums where they're talking. Just an hour ago, we heard that our state is pulling back restrictions, and that our state is, we're kind of going backwards in time. So it's hard right now for states to make decisions, and they're making plans, and then those plans are gone, and they have to come up with new plans, and it's a constant rewrite of what it will look like. I can tell you that they are extremely optimistic. They're extremely optimistic that they can make something happen. It might be a shorter season. It might be pushed back. They're even looking at, is there potential to rearrange sports so we can get some sports in the fall, and then maybe we're at a better place come winter, come spring. But they're throwing everything out there to make it happen. There's not a harder working group that wants kids to play than state associations that are in charge of your high school state championships and activities.
Yeah, I'm going to turn it over to Bob Burtucci. Bob Burtucci is unique in that he's coached Division I women's volleyball, and now he's coaching Division I men's volleyball. Turn it over to Bob.
Thanks, Brian. Lindsey, I'm going to just kind of clarify a few things that you've already highlighted, and Brian had asked, because my question actually had to do with, does the National Federation have decision-making authority? And it sounds like it's pretty much up to the states and the local state association to determine when they're going to go back or when they have to start, or are you trying to, as a national association, give directives that way?
No, that's a really good question, because it's a really good distinction from the federation, from the National Federation, from the NCAA. We are a federation by design. So our state associations are autonomous in their decision making. We do not mandate, we don't issue regulations, we don't enforce anything. We are literally a resource and leadership entity. And so we try to lead through developing, through research and kind of doing the legwork. So when our state associations are ready to make decisions, we've done the research. Here it is, to give them the ability to make educated decisions that are based on both research and what's going on in the world at this time. But yes, it is state association decisions when it comes to, eligibility standards, when it comes to play. The only requirement we have for state associations, if they are going to serve on our rules committees, they have to follow our rules. And so we distinguish our rules into two categories. Either they're game playing rules or administrative rules. So if you're in a state and you modify an administrative rule, meaning you allow your officials to wear NCAA officials' uniforms, you can still serve on our committees. But if you go with the NCAA rules of net play or centerline play, that's a game playing rule. So your state could not serve on our rules committee, because obviously you need to follow the rules if you're going to be a decision maker in the playing of the rules. Now for volleyball, we're really lucky that every state except for New York follows the federation rules. And it used to be New York and Massachusetts. Massachusetts just last year, they decided to go with federation rules. They're in a process of transition because there's still some NCAA rules that they really like and they're going with, and that's up to them. And the only thing they sacrifice is service on the committee. But that's really the only thing we can enforce from our level and kind of dangle as a carrot is if you don't go with our rules, then you can't serve on our rules committee. But for the most part, we have a group of state associations who want to be led and really value what the Federation provides in terms of resources and avenues for them to follow and get guidance on different aspects of both play and resources for education. We have NFHS Learning Center, which is a whole education platform for our coaches and officials as well.
Okay, so you mentioned a little bit earlier guidelines that you put out in respect to rules of play in this COVID-19, pandemic, to avoid contact and keep social distancing. So, maybe the girls can go back to play in the fall. All right. When you put those guidelines out, do all the state associations, like when you have your annual meeting like you're having right now, do they kind of usually buy into those? And is it possible, if they do, that a high school coach can go on your site, pull those things down, and at least know, how they're going to be operating, in a couple of months or a month and a half?
You guys are really digging into how this works, because it's really, I mean, we do. There's definitely a line that we have to balance here, because for instance, for the specific guidelines, we are providing those directly to the state associations. We never want to put our membership in a position where if they don't do what our guidelines say, that a media source or anyone could go after them to say, well, the Federation told you to do this, or you didn't follow it, a kid got hurt or a kid got infected, and therefore, we go down the line and litigation. We never want to put our states in that position. So when it comes to sensitive materials like this, we issue it directly to our state associations and let the state associations do with it what they want. So they can take that, and we even put in, obviously, like a statement that says they could even modify more than that this year. There will be no penalty for modifying playing rules this year. We will not tell Indiana that they can't serve on the rules committee if they go beyond what we issued, because this year is just a picture when it comes to whatever you do that can get kids to play, we're going to do it. So to that point, we are issuing these to the state associations. They can take those, they can add to it, they can go right with it. Also, to answer your question, yes, for the most part, state associations appreciate and respect what the committees put together, and you usually follow it if it makes sense in their area. I think that there might be some states that don't use any because they might be okay to go back to play and not use modifications. But for the most part, our states want to follow Federation guidelines. They want to follow what our committees have put out. So actually, my volleyball interpreters meeting is tomorrow, and so when we present it all tomorrow, I'll have better feedback. But for the most part, we've gotten positive feedback. The state associations are ready to go and love that we have done the work for them, because they were going to be doing that work themselves. But we do not put it in a place where coaches could access it, because we don't want to put them we don't want them to prepare for something that the state is saying we don't need to do that. So we do put it in the hands of the decision makers to decide if that's the direction they want to go.
So the best thing for a coach would be, or an athletic director, is just to go to their own high school association, because you provided them with all the data that you were able to collect and all the professional guidance you could put together. And now that's up to them to actually put out their directives for their play. Okay.
Correct. And that's how we function in any aspect of an interpretation, or they reach out to us. Even if we respond, we loop in that state administrator in the sport to make sure that the communication definitely flows coach, AD to state association to the federation, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. Even if it's as simple as my uniform legal, I want them to check with their state, because if they have we think that this color contrasts with this color and they have that set up, we want the state to be able to make that ruling. If the state person has a question, then they come to us and we will make a ruling from a national perspective.
Great. Has there been any discussion within the federation or within the federation to the state associations about the importance of starting girls volleyball in the fall? For fear of, if the high schools don't start playing, well, then these clubs all over the country are going to start, creating programs for high school girls to get involved in.
Yes, that is a concern. We were just talking yesterday. I was a part of a board roundtable, and we were talking about club sports are starting. I mean, who just interrupted me a second ago was my 4-year-old, because a dog bit her. But she T-ball. Like, she's started her T-ball and she's playing while we can't go to school. And so there is a concern. And I think this is interesting because a lot of it comes back to then the equity question. So now if it's a question of clubs can play, now we're limiting access. And typically those with means who now have access to play, those with less means don't have access to play because their only access to play is through interscholastic sports. Then we also talked about the fact that it looks like the typical country club sports would be able to come back first, your golf, your tennis, because there's automatic social distancing. But does it also create an inequity? Because now we're talking about the minorities. A lot of minorities aren't participating in country club sports. So now do we let some sports come back and not all? And so this question that we're all dealing with as a country of inequity also comes into play in this question of, when do sports come back? How do they come back? Can they come back for everybody? Which goes into play with the whole, we want interscholastic sports to be able to come back, but they also have the added factor of school has to be back. It has to be safe for schools to be in session. And there's a whole nother level of accountability that interscholastic sports has that club sports seems to be immune from. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a definite concern for all sports that the club scenes are going to be growing while our interscholastic might shrink a little bit. And it also coming into play is the transfer. The transfer issue of schools, because of my school can't play, but maybe some of these prep schools are able to play because they're not following the state association rules. Well, these schools, these high caliber athletes start transferring out of their public school to go to these prep schools because they know that they can play. So all of those are concerned as we start approaching the fall. And that's why, I mean, there's nobody that wants fall sports to come back more than state associations and the administrators that run those. So yeah, all of those play into the concerns that are definitely present right now.
Well, Lindsey, that was great. I really appreciate you delving into all this stuff with us, because we all want to see high school sports happen in the fall, especially girls volleyball. And so it's great to hear that the state associations have that mindset and are looking to make it happen, with the best in a safe way as possible. I'd like to throw it over to Ruth now. I know she wants to change gears a little bit and get into some coaching education stuff, which I know is right up your alley. So Ruth, why don't you take it from here?
Okay, Bob, I was waiting for you. I thought you had one more question. But Lindsey, those were great questions that Bob asked. And I think probably one of the most important things before I kind of talk on the coaching education side is that high school sports, not just volleyball, provide such a unique opportunity for kids to develop at a different level and with a different group of kids than when they play outside sports. When you lose that opportunity for these kids, because it kind of addresses what Bob's last question was, you want high school sports to start because they need to be in high school sports because you have so many relationships and, you know, you have the teachers and you can track them on the academics, whereas outside sports, a lot of times they're not as concerned. So I go back now into the coaching education side because I know you said you're zoomed out. However, you didn't buy any Zoom stock at the right time. But I got a chance to kind of look on the Learning Center website for you guys. And I saw that you had a COVID-19 for coaches and administrators. Is there something for the athletes that they could go on and get this kind of same information? Because, you know, it's like this, knowledge is power. So is there anything that's been done with that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And honestly, that was just launched Monday. I want to say that's based on the NFHS guidelines that were released from the Sports Medicine Advisory Council. But yes, that title we're kind of ever changing because it started with just for coaches, and then we added administrators. And now could we add like directors in terms of it's also good for activities directors. And so the title, I think, is misleading in terms of it would be a good course for anybody who just wants to get the information. They also just launched, you probably saw the Collapsed Athlete course, which is another would be really good for athletes too, because there's situations when athletes go down and we don't know why at this point. You know, we can't diagnose with a COVID-19 test or a defibrillator right away. So it's like, what do we do if we're in an open gym and just players right now, and our coaches aren't around? So yes, all of those, and if you've seen on the Learning Center, it started off, I want to say like 2006, I think it launched. Dan, who's in charge of it, would probably cringe. I think it's 2006. But when it started, it was just for coaches. So it was really a learning center. We had coaches of fundamentals. And then we started expanding, and there's a whole list of courses for student athletes. And then there's a whole list of courses now for officials. So we're really trying to expand that library of courses for educational materials and to get more materials for student athletes as well.
So master coaches could really direct people, the players and parents, to go and take that course because it's for free? Yes. There's a lot of courses on Learn for free. Most of the health and safety ones are for free. The ones that are more specific, and honestly, all the officials courses right now through the end of July are free. Any officials education course, anybody out there who wants to become an official, and Lord knows we need more officials right now, we go on there, get some materials, because right now, through the end of July, all those resources are free. And so I know that this is coaches, but coaches know that there wouldn't be volleyball if we don't have officials. And that group is, as in every sport, we age out and we need new recruits and everything. And so we need new officials recruits. So we've really made a push for those, especially during this time when people have time on their hands, to drive them to the Learning Center and provide more free resources. The reason I asked that about the COVID-19 for coaches and administrators, that I looked and I actually took 2 or 3 of the videos and listened to them. And one of the things that I noticed, that a lot of the players and parents, high school players, they're not being given, it's like every day we pick up, CNN, we hear something new, right? So I think parents and players need a place where they can go learn what's being done at the national level. Even though you're not like a typical national governing body, you do present information to all the different states' organizations. And for us as master coaches, we would love to offer any opportunities we can to help your coaches grow, because we know that we do virtual Zoom clinics. I know that there's one coming up that the AVCA is doing for you. And we really feel teaching fundamental skills is the most important thing. And as you well know, a lot of your coaches sometimes get into coaching. They might be a communication teacher, right? And may never have coached volleyball. So I want you to keep that always in mind, that we really want to help grow the sport just like you're growing the sports. And, you know, everybody has their parameters. Now, I know Mick has time for one more question, and then I'll turn it over to him. Lindsey, thank you for letting us know more about your learning center.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. I did pick up one thing, though. You're watching CNN and Bob's watching Fox. Is that the same information?
Mine's in Spanish.
Just delivered differently.
I actually do have one more question. Last week we had Wade Gerard, who is actually in Indianapolis there, pretty close to you, from First Point Volleyball Foundation on, and he was pointing out that statistics indicate that boys volleyball is the fastest growing sport in the United States right now, or if not the fastest, one of the 2 or 3 fastest. And I'm interested, from what he was talking about, several people's efforts to get high school boys volleyball as varsity sports. I'm interested to know what the Federation is doing to, if anything, to support that, and if they should be doing anything to support that, because you know, we've been concerned for the last 30 or 40 years about opportunities for women to catch up with the boys' sports and that sort of thing. But now it seems like we have so many women playing volleyball in this country. It's the #1 sport, I believe, in high school. Boys want the same opportunity. And so can you give us any input or enlightenment there as to what's happening with boys?
Yes, and I've met Wade, and we've had some conversations about what more we can do to support the growth of boys volleyball. From our perspective, we know that we could do more. In all honesty, we could do more. But there are things that we talked about in terms of just the visibility. In terms of our publications that we put out, they are majority girls' images on the front covers of rule books, on case books, on any information that goes out. And so we've made a concerted effort in the last couple of years with our with the help of REI and Referee Magazine, where we do some joint publications, to make sure we're also getting images of boys volleyball. When we did some official clips for the NFHS Learning Center, we pulled a lot of the NFHS network footage of boys volleyball and not just girls volleyball. So anytime we can give some visibility, we want to support that. And I'll tell you, one of the big hurdles for some states is their current bylaws in regards to what it takes to become a varsity recognized sport. Some states it's easier than others, in all reality. And so there are some states that have pretty strict guidelines that say 50% of your membership, so all of the schools that are in your state, have to offer the sport to be able to even get to be recognized as a varsity sport. Well, that comes to visibility. So if we could be recognized, maybe some more would come out of that. And so I think there's a lot of reflection on state associations of what they can do in terms of providing some more visibility through their maybe it's club level right now, so through club level play, and having some categories of emerging sport, and kind of similar to what the NCAA does, to provide some more visibility. And also we're trying to work some more. We have one discussion item tomorrow that's just in regards to the ball. Like, we currently have the rule, like women's volleyball does the NCAA, that the ball is smooth, which limits the ball, the textured ball, which boys are used to playing with. And so we're going to talk about in the coming years of, is it time to do a little bit of separating, and it's okay by gender. As we do the net, we have a different net height. Could we allow for a textured ball for boys volleyball as opposed to girls? Because we don't want to stifle the growth. And if kids don't want to play in high school because they have to play with a different ball, which I hope wouldn't be the thing that keeps them from playing, then what can we do to help from a rules writing standpoint? So those are some things that I think we've been trying to do and could continue to do better as we grow. But you are right. I mean, as a female, I love it. I love it that volleyball I get to be in the office with the #1 team sport, and that's my sport, and I love it. But there is that side of, we could do more to promote the other side, which is the boys side, which I think that more and more kids want opportunities to participate, and we should be a part of that growth for sure.
Well, thank you very much, Lindsey. This has been so enlightening. You've been great. Thanks for being open to sharing with us. We're running out of time, so we have to stop. Have a bunch more questions, but maybe we'll have to get together and do this again a second time. Next week, next week we have a great show coming up. Ruth and Bob and I are just going to grill Brian Gimmillaro, the legend of Long Beach, with 3 national championships. Special program to have Brian on, talking about everything he went through developing to be a coach, some of his highlights, some of his special times with his players. Chance for people just to listen to one of the all-time greats answer and field a few questions. And I'd love to have people come on and send in their questions so we can hear about the whole life story of Brian Gimmillaro, the volleyball coach, and maybe how he grew up. So thanks again for being on. Ruth, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Okay, a special shout out to all those coaches that have attended one of our Championship Skills Series clinics. For those interested in hosting a virtual clinic this fall or an in-person clinic in 2021, contact us at www.volleyballmastercoaches.com. Watch for our upcoming series, Journey of the Legends, that will feature interviews with our master coaches, Mick, Brian, Bob, and Ruth. Join us next week for our Master Coaches Wednesday Weekly Buzz. Follow us on Facebook at Volleyball Master Coaches, Instagram and Twitter at VB Master Coaches. Before going to our host, John Forman, who will update us on the upcoming coaching conversations, we have a special, here we go, Master Coaches, and our viewers would like to congratulate John as he is now the head men's and women's volleyball coach at Medaille College in Buffalo, New York. We wish you, but this is the best. We wish you the best for safe once you get out of quarantine and a productive season. Now, back to you, John.
All right. Thanks, Ruth. Thanks, everybody. Coming up in the coaching conversations, because of this transition I'm making, calendars have been thin, but I am working on something where I'll get Lloyd Ball and probably one other representative of the Volleyball League of America to come in and talk about what's happening on the men's professional side of the game. So keep posted. You'll get details on Twitter at CoachingVB or at coachingvolleyball.com, or if you're watching this on Facebook, on the Coaching Volleyball page that this is streaming on. So until next week and until next time, thanks for tuning in.